city and county advocacy issues, because you could have an urban growth boundary, but if you move it, then it doesn't seem like much of one. I can tell you, I'm hopeful that at least because we have Orange that has one, it's kind of informal, and we kind of much actually. They don't really have one on the west side, by the way, Orange County. So those Orange County residents in the room, like, we need to fight for some boundary. Then Polk, we don't have any. And Polk, the way it's designed, there's a bunch of little cities all across the county, so there's no natural boundary to start with. But that's a worry of mine. And then in Osceola, yes, we have to hold the line. And that takes advocacy with our local officials to do so. And hopefully we'll win a lot more than we lose, but you have to at least try, and thank you for that advocacy. Next we have David Jones. David, thank you for coming. It's recently reported that toxic sludge was being transported from the Fort Myer area into Polk County. I heard it said because this arrangement was done through private business, there was nothing the Polk County commissioners could do about it. I did not hear of any public hearing before this was done. Is there no governmental mechanism that would allow county residents to have a say, perhaps stop the practices of profiteers being party to arrangements to have toxic sludge shipped to Polk County? So let's go through all the details of it. The area it was going to was zoned for environmental mitigation. I think that was the business that they were sending it to. That's the argument of why Polk County commissioners said they couldn't do anything about it. We've already had a little bit of change in the state law that if there is a pollution spill, now under state law you have to notify residents about it. Although we haven't seen a good policy of the state doing that. You saw just recently in Ocala, they were late on notifying all the residents over at the fire school. So one of the things that could be done under the state legislature is require any major move of any toxic substance would also have to be given notice. And in the meantime, we are happy to join you in using our bully pulpit to highlight the issue. But while the spill law just happened, there is no law yet requiring some major shift of toxic materials that they're mitigating to be actually to notify residents. Other than that area is zoned for cleanup. Any further comments? What would you like to see?
I would like to see public hearings on something like that, and some study as to what effect it would have on groundwater.
Is that Lakeland or Bartow? Refresh my memory on that one.
I think it was around Mulberry.
Yeah. So I'm happy to discuss it. It is a little outside of the district, which is, if it would have been in the district, I would have probably had a town hall there right afterwards. But we
there's secretages.
I know. So let's talk. We're working on additional town hall meetings. Our next one will actually be on Social Security in Polk County. Let's work offline about maybe hearing from some residents over there in like a round table. And in addition, I would bring it up at our Polk County State Delegation meeting that should be coming up soon if it hasn't already. What?
I think it already occurred.
Then you may want to help work with folks to write letters, and I'm happy to support you on it, to suggest this as a new state law, that if you're going to be shifting this, there should be some additional notice. Because there's a spill notice that just passed over the last 2 years, but there's no notice for this specific situation. And that, of course, happened because of other issues in Polk County regarding Mosaic and the spill of some of the retention water over the phosphate mining areas. So these are continuing to be issues that we need to address. Next we have Annabelle Santa.
You can come up one about this.
Okay. And lastly, we have David Bottomley.
Right here.
Thanks for being here. Transit is struggling. Dedicated funding for transit in addition to capital funding, maintenance operations. So I just had a conversation with some of our county commissioners, because now that we have a seat of change in Orange County, and we have an Osceola County Commission that is looking at ways to increase transportation, about how they're going to get the revenue to do a dedicated transportation fund. Because as you know, when we put together Sunrail and through Links, that was a sharing agreement that'll be up in the next couple of years. So they have to come up with a funding source at some point. And one of the things I encourage them to look at, in addition to trying to use the existing funds, is for major businesses that are usually the beneficiaries of transit. Because we're getting their folks to work at a subsidized rate, that would be a place to start with some of the major businesses around here to derive additional revenue so that we can have a direct funding source for both Links and Sunrail.
Well, what I was thinking was I read National along and all the transportation periodicals. The country on a whole is struggling with transit maintenance and operations.
Sure.
I had the honor of sitting in on a Federal Transit Authority triennial review workshop, and they are very, very good about holding the transit people accountable for what they fund. I took a couple pages of notes myself. And the thing is, I'm thinking at the federal level, if they want to, I don't know whether it be part of the infrastructure bill or what, I was thinking about that, a line item in that bill saying there's so much money as a grant, not just a grant, something to help HART and Links and all the other transit agencies on maintenance and operations, with the idea that there'd be a fault of the Federal Transit Authority administration. So that's not just capital improvement projects, like shelters and facilities and buses and all that, but helping out in the maintenance and operations, because it's been in sorry shape here in the I-4 corridor for years.
I agree completely, and let me talk about first the $1 trillion package and some of the things that are happening already. So for a $1 trillion infrastructure package, we necessarily have to look to the gas tax and at least a partial rollback of the GOP tax plan that passed last term to help fund it, because we wouldn't just deficit spend on a $1 trillion infrastructure package. So we're talking about on the federal level where the dollars come from, those would be the two tranches that would most likely be looked at. What specifics our leadership hasn't really talked about, and I'm not on those committees, so I haven't had the insight that I can tell you about for energy and commerce and natural resources, but it's obvious those are the two funding sources that we'd look at when putting together a $1 trillion infrastructure package. And the big projects we'd be looking at, some of which are happening already. First, we have Sunrail Phase 2 that's already come into place here in Osceola. It's already changing attitudes and lifestyles around here. We're seeing more people realize living close to Sunrail Station is going to be a big thing. Secondly, Brightline, soon to be called Virgin Trains. I don't know when that becomes official, but let's call it Brightline for right now, is already from my high-speed rail going, nearly high-speed rail. It's 10 miles below high-speed rail, but for all intents and purposes, I'm going to refer to it as high-speed rail, just in case anybody's really persnickety in the room. High-speed rail going from Miami to Broward to Palm Beach, and then all the way over to Orlando. So the one from Miami to Palm Beach is already built. It already is running. They're now working on Phase 2 of Brightline, which will go to, I'm sure all of you have seen that new parking lot in the south part of the airport. It looks like a spaceship, and it's all modern, and it's got the rail going into it. Well, that's the new Brightline station. And so the biggest thing that I worked on recently that some of you may saw, either through the, I know that Channel 9 covered it, and the Expressway Authority covered it, was we were in a real rut with how to connect Sunrail to Brightline. Because part of the Phase 2 project is Phase 2 North, from DeBarry to DeLand. And their member at the time, who happens to be governor now, wasn't very supportive of that. And they never got that. And Volusia's paying an equal share as Seminole, Orange, and Osceola County. So they're rightly so upset, when is our Phase 2 North going to happen? They also had some problem with the ridership numbers. So that put the whole next step of Phase 3, connecting Sunrail to Brightline, in jeopardy. I had put forward an amendment to try to fund Sunrail Phase 3 on the floor to connect. It's only like 5 miles of track from Meadowwoods to the airport, and most of it already is no UC rail. So we already have rail, we just need to upgrade it and then complete it. And my amendment was made out of order because the Florida Department of Transportation hadn't done all the studies and hadn't gotten on the federal rail list to get there. Because very ordinary, you can't just throw an amendment on there, but I tried. So and that was 2017, so all of 2018, I spent time advocating to the CEO of the parent company of Brightline and to the CEO of Brightline about doing the connection themselves, because their system would make no sense if it didn't connect to Sunrail. And these are the types of things that everybody assumes work out, but then when you have Brightline, Sunrail, 5 miles difference and no plan to build the rail, that's when everybody's like, what is happening? Who is doing something about this? And so as Brightline then just got the bid to go to Tampa, they got to announce publicly they are going to, without taxpayer money, they have taxes and bonds, so there's a federal government aspect to it, but it's private dollars being used through taxes and federal bonds. They will connect to the Sunrail station through private funding, and then that will go all the way to Tampa, and they'll eventually go up to Jackson. So these Sunrail stations across from DeBarry down to Point Siena, at some point over the next 8 to 10 years, frankly, everything is longer than they say it will be. But I'd rather be right than screw up rail and have people. You're going to be able to get from a Sunrail station to places like Tampa, Miami, and eventually Jacksonville without the need of a car. And for seniors, for persons with disabilities, for our youth, and for folks who can't afford cars, this is a liberating revolution for Florida. We will likely have the chairman of the Transportation Committee coming down over the next couple of months, and he will be reviewing for the $1 trillion infrastructure package, I-4 Ultimate, which I know is a pain, but it needs to be done. We'll all get through it. We'll be reviewing Brightline and Sunrail, and there are some additional things related to what we call beyond I-4 Ultimate, which is north of the ending in Seminole County, and that affects a lot of our districts. From 535 to 27, we believe we have to finish the I-4 Ultimate, beyond I-4 Ultimate, and go all the way down to 27, because that's where all the tractor trailers go off I-4 and cause the bottlenecking along with Disney. So the whole idea is to start getting approval for funds for beyond I-4 Ultimate to finish up the job and go all the way down to 27. And in Seminole County, I'm not sure where it stops, but they already have analysis of where we need to finish it up. So yes, it's a big issue, and nobody likes the traffic on I-4. But in the 60s, they said, why do we need an interstate highway around here? There's nobody who lives here. There's only 500,000 people. And now people are like, why do we just have this dinky highway around here? There's 2.5 million people. So, we got to do something at some point. It's obviously the transportation lifeblood, along with an ever-growing transportation project. So with that, thank you for that great question. I'm going to give my team up here a chance to have some closing remarks, and then we're going to conclude. But thanks, everybody, for some great questions.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for your time this afternoon, coming out on a Saturday. It seems like it's pretty gorgeous outside, so it's a bigger sacrifice maybe than obviously less folks make. So thank you very much. If you have additional questions, I've got cards. I'm happy to share my phone number, email, and so we'd love to keep in touch and learn some of the local issues that are going on.